Adobe's 3D tool is Adobe Dimension. It enables you to create 3D content using models, materials, and lighting. And with Dimension, you're not doing a lot of creation of 3D shapes, just like Photoshop doesn't take photos. Instead, you're creating scenes and building out brand visualizations and product mockups. Pretty much whatever you want. I want to do product mockups, so I'll go right up here to Create New, clicking right there. We could see we can create some basic shapes, including text, modify properties of these basic shapes, which is really cool. But really, we're going to start with the starter assets, and we're going to drop in just a model. In fact, this coffee cup is what I want to use. Dropping in the model you want to use. You can see you get on-object controls that you can go ahead and modify, but you also get these properties off to the side as well if you want to get into specifics. I actually want to move this back to the ground. So clicking that button under Actions does what I want it to do. But I want to navigate around the scene a little easier. So right over here off to the side, you have Orbit, you have Pan, and then you have the Dolly tool. It's 1, 2, and 3. Those are the keys. So I can hold down 1 and orbit around an object. I can hold down 2 to pan around, and then 3 to kind of zoom in like so. But really, I also like using this button right up here. So whatever's selected, just go ahead and fill the frame with that selection so I can start working on it. And that's what I want to do. I want to kind of get into the materials. We can see this cup is made up of a cup itself and the lid. So I'll double click on that. And here's the lid material that it's using. I'll go over here to the base color because I want to change the color of that lid to actually a nice hot pink like so, okay? Just like that. Looks great. I'll go back, I'll go to the cup. Notice that this cup, if I double click on it, it actually has a texture in here, but I actually want to change it as well. So right over here in Starter Assets, you have materials right in here, and you have lights. I'm gonna go to materials, jump down to grab any one that I want and dropping it onto the object that I want to drop it onto. So there's that brushed iridescent metal, which looks really cool. So feel free to play with some of those materials. Ultimately, I want to use this cardboard under Substance Materials. You could also type in cardboard to find it, but just drop it on like so, and there it is. All right, so far so good. I want to add actually another model to the scene. So I will go right over here to the models, and I want to add this gift bag, and I'll drop it right there next to my cup. Clicking this button right up here, we can see what it looks like in view, and I would say that looks pretty good so far. I could probably scale it up a little bit. Holding down the Shift key, I can scale it up like so. About that size, that looks pretty good. Now let's play with some of its materials. We have the paper right in here that I will double click on that icon, go to the base color, and add that recently used color like so. We'll go back out. For the bag itself, I actually want to use a nice material. In fact, I want it to be highly reflective and fancy, so we'll use metal. Dropping that on the bag. Looks good. Holding down the 1 key, we can see it's reflective. We're not really seeing a whole lot because it's reflecting lights. So let's change the lights. Right over here, changing the lights. I'll add these studio light arches like so. That's more along the lines of what I want. Holding down the 1 key, again, that high contrast is really showing off how reflective it is, okay? So that looks good so far, but now I want to add really my own images to this rather than using these stock materials. I'm going to go out to my desktop. If you have access to the exercise files, it's in Assets, the vector files, okay? You can add JPEGs and PNG files, GIF files, but really I'm going to use this Illustrator file, this cup, AI file, dropping it on the cup. I use vector-based files because I can scale them up and down without loss of quality. And in this case, I'm just going to hold down the Shift key, shrink it down. Looks great. Go back out to my desktop, grabbing this bag, Illustrator file, dropping it on the bag. There it is. I'm going to shrink that down, put it in the corner like that, maybe rotate it like that. It does say to reuse this bag. So I want to make this bag look a little bit more fancy. So in order to do that, I'm going to go to the bag itself. I'm going to double click on it. I'm going to go into this metal material right here. And guess what? It's this roughness. This goes from shiny to matte. And what I can do is I can actually add an image to the roughness if I want to. So that's what I want to do since I have it right here in this little Finder window. I'm going to grab this California Flower Illustrator file and I can drop it on that specific property right there, that roughness, just like that. Clicking on that icon, I want to increase the number of times it repeats, kind of like that. And I want to rotate it around a little bit like, kind of like that, right? Hopefully that makes sense. Looks really cool. I can play with this all day long, but that's what I want. Holding down the 1 key, you can see it made it matte there and it just looks really cool. Okay, so that's the idea. I'd say that looks pretty good for now. I might want to share this with the client or anyone else. I can save this file. I'll just save it to the desktop and I will just call this recycle. There's my dimension file, and right up here at the top, we want to click this share button. And from here, we can publish a 3D scene, calling it recycle as well, creating a public link for the client or designer friend, really for anyone to view. Once that's done, we can view it on the web. I'll click right there. Opens up a browser, and guess what? I can send this link to a client. They can interact with it, see that shiny material, and really sell this project for me if that's what I'm going for. Or I can even embed it into my portfolio if I want to as well. All right, so that looks pretty good. I'm going to go back in here, and I want to do one more thing to this, and then I'm going to render it out. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to go right over here to the images, because I want to show how this is going to look in an actual environment. Okay, so right down here we have this table. I'm going to take this table, drop it onto the background. There it is. Now I can try to adjust its position and all that fun stuff to try to get the angle right, or I can go right over here to match image. And now it will resize the canvas, create lights, and match the perspective of my models to the table in this case. So that looks pretty good. I can always hold down the 3 key, which is the dolly key, kind of shrink that up like so. And I can always modify the lights that it's implemented. But I'd say that looks pretty darn good. From there, guess what? I actually want to, I can do a render preview right here. Click right there to get a kind of a good idea of what its final render will look like. I can see that it's actually going to reflect the cup in the bag, which I think looks pretty cool. But ultimately, I want to go over here to render, and I can render out this file. It's just going to be called recycle. I'm going to render it out at medium quality. I'm going to save this file before I do so, and it's going to make a PSD for me in this case, right? So I have access to all those fun layers, and it's going to save it to the desktop. So I'll click render. Also notice right up here, there's a cloud rendering. So what will happen there is it will upload the model to a render service, and then it will return the PSD to you once it's rendered in the cloud. Therefore, you can continue to work in Dimension. As you can see, we can see the final render right from within Dimension, and we could also go out to the desktop, and there is our PSD that we can preview as well. So Dimension allows you to do a lot. Ultimately, I think it makes 3D compositing easy for everyone.